The Xenobiology Auditorium of the Galactic Institute buzzed with anticipation as Professor Zithrax, a distinguished Vrelian scholar with iridescent scales and four compound eyes, prepared his latest lecture. Today's topic: the most lethal arthropods of Death World Terra 3. Josephine Martinez sat in the back row, her worn leather jacket contrasting sharply with the sleek biosuits worn by her alien classmates. She was the only human in a class of 200 students from across the galaxy, a novelty that still drew curious stares even 3 months into the semester. Today, Professor Zithrax announced, his translator implant rendering his clicks and whistles into galactic standard. We examine creatures so dangerous that merely touching them can result in immediate cardiac arrest. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a magnified image of a small, delicate creature with multiple legs. Behold the Colapida gigantea, what humans call the giant centipede, the professor continued, his voice dropping to an ominous whisper. Several students in the front row recoiled. This nightmare creature possesses venom capable of liquefying tissue. Its bite can incapacitate creatures 50 times its size. Josephine squinted at the image and suppressed a smile that a Kelvorian student, his blue tentacles trembling, raised one appendage. Professor, surely no sentient species would willingly inhabit a planet with such monsters. Ah, but humans did more than inhabit Earth, Zithrax replied. They thrived. They conquered. They became the apex predators of a world that seemed designed to kill them at every turn. The hologram shifted to show another creature, sleek, black, with an obvious stinger curled over its back. The scorpions, Zithrax breathed. Arachnids armed with neurotoxins that cause excruciating pain, paralysis, and often death. Some species carry venom potent enough to kill within hours. On any civilized world, these would be classified as Class A biothreat organisms, requiring immediate quarantine and elimination protocols. Josephine couldn't help herself. A small chuckle escaped her lips. The sound cut through the hushed auditorium like a plasma cutter through butter. 200 alien heads, or head equivalents, swiveled toward her. Professor Zithrax's eyes focused on her with laser precision. Miss Martinez, he said coolly, does something about lethal Earth fauna amuse you? Josephine stood, suddenly aware that she'd become the center of attention. Her roommate, Augustine Chun, had warned her about speaking up in class. Keep your head down, he'd said. They already think we're crazy. But Josephine had never been good at keeping quiet. With respect, Professor, she began, her voice steady. Those aren't really that dangerous. The auditorium erupted in a cacophony of confused chirps, whistles, and electronic translator feedback. Professor Zithrax raised one clawed hand for silence. Not dangerous, he repeated, his scales shifting to a shade that Josephine had learned indicated skepticism. Miss Martinez, perhaps you misunderstood the translation. These creatures possess venom. Yeah, I got that part, Josephine interrupted, walking down the aisle toward the front. But Professor, where I come from, small town in Texas, we used to eat scorpions. The silence that followed was absolute. Eat, whispered a Delphinian student, her translator barely processing the word. Fried, mostly. Josephine continued, warming to her subject. My abuela used to make them for parties. You bread 'em, deep fry 'em, serve 'em with hot sauce. The tail's crunchy. Tastes kind of like salty popcorn. Professor Zithrax's scales had gone completely pale. You consumed the scorpions? Voluntarily. Well, the venom denatures when you cook it, Josephine explained. Breaks down the proteins. Basic chemistry. Though some folks eat them raw on dares. My cousin Miguel did that once. He was fine. Little tingly around the mouth, but fine. A Vrelian student in the third row fainted, collapsing onto his desk with a thud. And the centipedes? Professor Zithrax asked weakly, as if afraid of the answer. Oh yeah, those two. Bigger ones, anyway. In some parts of Asia, that's a continent on Earth, they're considered a delicacy. Street food. You skewer 'em, grill 'em, boom. Snack time. Josephine pulled out her datapad, scrolling through her photo gallery. Here, I've got pictures from last year's trip home. See, that's me and Augustine at the Texas State Fair. She projected the image onto the auditorium's main screen. The photo showed two humans grinning widely, each holding a stick with what appeared to be a fried scorpion impaled on it. Behind them, a sign read, "Exotic Eats, $8. 8 credits?" gasped the Kelvorian student. "You paid money to consume Class A biothreats. $8, not credits." "Way cheaper," Josephine corrected. Though honestly, the fried Oreos were better. Professor Zithrax sat down heavily in his chair, looking as though he'd aged several solar cycles in the past 5 minutes. "Let me understand this correctly. On Earth, children voluntarily consume venomous arthropods as entertainment." "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds weird," Josephine admitted. "But yeah, pretty much. We also eat oysters, which are basically sea boogers, and mushrooms, which are fungus. Oh, and there's this fish called fugu that's super poisonous if you prepare it wrong. It kills people every year, but it's still a delicacy in Japan. Your species," the professor said slowly, "is clinically insane." "We prefer adaptable," Josephine replied with a shrug. "Look, Professor, I get that these things seem scary to you, but humans evolved on Earth. We didn't just survive that planet, we turned it into our playground. Every venomous thing, every predator, every environmental hazard became either a resource or a challenge to overcome. Sometimes both." She gestured to the hologram, which still showed the scorpion in menacing detail. "These guys, they're just protein with attitude. Nothing a little heat and creativity can't handle." The Delphinian student raised a trembling appendage. "But the venom, the pain is temporary," Josephine said, channeling every pep talk her coach had ever given her. "Awesome stories are forever. Do you know how much street cred you get for eating a scorpion?" "So much." "Street cred." Zithrax's translator struggled with the colloquialism. "Social status," Josephine clarified. "Bragging rights. It's a human thing." Professor Zithrax stared at her for a long moment, then turned to address the class. "Students, I believe we have just witnessed a perfect example of why humans are classified as a Tier 1 Deathworlder species. They don't merely survive hostile environments. They find ways to enjoy them." He looked back at Josephine, something like respect flickering in his compound eyes. "Miss Martinez, would you be willing to give a guest lecture on human dietary practices? I believe the class would benefit from a native perspective." Josephine grinned. "Only if I can bring samples." The auditorium erupted in panicked shrieks. Later that evening, Josephine found Augustine in their shared dormitory, hunched over his engineering homework. She flopped onto her bunk with a satisfied sigh. "How was xenobiology?" Augustine asked without looking up. "I may have accidentally convinced 200 aliens that we're all insane." Augustine finally looked up, one eyebrow raised. "What did you do?" "Told them we eat scorpions." Her roommate groaned. "Joe, we talked about this. You can't just—" "Professor wants me to do a guest lecture," she interrupted smugly. Augustine stared at her, then shook his head with a reluctant smile. "Only you could turn a biology class into a cultural exchange program through the medium of deep-fried arthropods." "It's a gift," Josephine agreed, pulling up her datapad. "Now help me figure out if we can get any Earth insects shipped here. I'm thinking tarantulas next. Really blow their minds." "We're going to get expelled," Augustine muttered, but he was already searching interstellar shipping regulations. Outside their window, the twin moons of the Institute world rose over alien landscapes, while inside, 2 humans plotted the most unusual cooking demonstration the Galactic Institute had ever seen. Somewhere in the cosmos, Earth's reputation as the galaxy's most baffling death world grew just a little bit larger.